I have great privilege in introducing Professor Jan Willis this evening. And I'd like you to think of a question. What do you want to know about her stories, about Lama Yeshe? So keep putting those questions in chat. And towards the end, you are not empty vessels. You already know lots. So what do you want to ask Professor Jan? So it's my privilege, Professor Jan, to introduce you. And my understanding is that Time magazine named you as one of the spiritual innovators of the new millennium. And Ebony magazine named you as one of its Power 150 most influential American women. And we've got you here tonight. Wow. Your latest book is a compelling essay collection called Dharma Matters, Women, Race and Tantra. And I also recommend Dr. Willis's memoir, Dreaming Me, Black, Baptist and Buddhist, a woman's spiritual journey. Dr. Willis was among the early American students of Lama Yeshe. I've just seen that there's a question in chat already. I'm so chuffed. That's great. We'll save it to the end, but that's brilliant. Yes, so one of the, I think Professor Jan studied with Lama Yeshe, the originator of universal education, for about 15 years before his death. And I just want to welcome you, Professor Jan Willis, to our Big Love Festival here today. And I'd love to hear all that you have to tell us about your unique life and your memories of Lama Yeshe and his vision for UE. So over to you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. First, can everyone hear me okay? Can you? No? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I hope everyone else can. Fire away.
Okay. Let me know if the Ethernet hookup gets shaky. It happens. So, Wendy, thank you so much. Well, it's an absolute delight for me to be asked to tell stories about Lama Yeshe. I can do it falling, I can do it in my sleep. I was so fortunate to meet the Lama, both Lamas, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, in the fall of 1969. Oh. And I feel as though Lama Zopa Rinpoche and I were teenagers together. We sort of grew up together. Lama Yeshe was both of our teachers. Now, I'm not the only one who has stories to tell about Lama Yeshe. There are so many stories about Lama Yeshe. All of us have them. Everyone who met him has tons of stories to share with you, and they're all remarkable. Yes?
Lama Yeshe, Professor Jan,
I can't hear you.
It's breaking up a little. May I request everybody to please turn their video off? If you could just turn your video, it might give a bit more strength. So please, everybody, turn your video off. Make sure you're muted. Sorry, Professor Jan, it was breaking up a little. Okay.
Is it better now?
Let's see.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Lama Zopa Rinpoche has written a number of books, but one of them is called The Heart of the Path. And who is the heart of the path? According to Rinpoche, it's the teacher. I think, why is that? Why is the teacher the heart of the path? Well, I would say the teacher is what gives juice. It's what brings the path alive for us. So without doubt, is it better now?
Yes.
Without doubt, the teacher is the heart of the path. Oh, are we fortunate if we run into a good teacher in this life, because that teacher can help us to make life meaningful. That teacher can help us to become good human beings. What could be better? So if we wanted to build a house, we might call in some consults. We might need to apprentice for a while with the teacher. If we wanted to paint, whatever activity we wanted to do well, we all can agree that a teacher helps, and that a teacher might be the main thing that helps us succeed. Well, this was certainly true for me and Lama Yeshe. For meeting him changed my whole life. Lama Yeshe is and was the heart of the path. So my understanding is what Lama Yeshe wanted to do with universal education is quite simple. He said he wanted to help us become good human beings. If we expanded that as far as we can imagine, that's what the meaning of Sangye is. You know, this expansive purity, ethical conduct, good human being. That's a Buddha. And I think what Lama Yeshe meant when he said universal education ought to teach people how to cultivate not just mind, but heart and mind, both. This is what he meant, and it's also an explanation, I think, of what the term bodhicitta means. In the West, we translate this as compassion, bodhicitta. But chitta in Sanskrit means both heart and mind. So I think Lama Yeshe wanted very clearly for us to develop both heart and mind. And a good teacher can help us to do that. A bodhisattva, we generally translate as a being who is compassionate. But a bodhisattva is someone who has bodhicitta. And in Sanskrit, chitta means both heart and mind. So bodhisattva is one who has the heart set on bodhi as well as the mind set on bodhi. Okay. So a bodhisattva has not only insight and is set on developing, cultivating insight, but also cultivating, developing, growing the heart, both compassion and wisdom. A Buddha has in equal quantity, it said, compassion and wisdom. And if we make universal education work, we'll develop a good human being. Then what could be better? Okay, so I'm supposed to tell stories of Lama Yeshe. The first time I ever saw Lama Yeshe, I met him with two of my good friends. And Mami Zena tried to stop us from meeting the Lamas. When we made the trip up to Kopan, she said, oh, you want to see the Lamas, but the Lamas are both tired, so you can't see them. And she said, but you come away, so I'll treat you to lunch. And, and she called Matala, Matala, and you came to cook, and we had a picnic out on the grounds there in front of the astrologer's house. And then she said, okay, goodbye, sorry you came all this way and you couldn't meet the llamas. And then she went in a flourish up her stairs and out of sight. And we sort of dejectedly moved towards the outer rooms of that compound, towards the gate. And when we got by the last room, I mean, we're talking about a little 3-room structure in Copan, the door opened slightly and a hand came out and beckoned us inside. And that was Lama Yeshe's hand. And we snuck in, and Lama Yeshe said, oh, Lama is so happy you have come today. So just wonderful, it was like fantasy. It was incredible. And yet, after spending 2 hours with Lama Yeshe, feeling so warm and cared for and made welcome and valued, Lama Yeshe said, so dear, why have you come? And my other 2 friends said something I don't remember, because who remembers what the other person said? But I wasn't willing to admit, why I'd come. So I gave a textbook answer. I said, we've come because samsara is suffering. Oh, what a blown chance. Why didn't I tell him? I came because I suffered tremendously from low self-esteem, from being a Black human being in the US that was told over and over I was worthless. Not fit to be anything except perhaps a slave. Why didn't I admit? Why I'd come? I say all this to say, even so, Lama Yeshe, recognizing my insecurity, recognizing my own issues, held me as a student. So one day, not long after that, I was up, spent the night with my friends, and I was standing outside Lama Yeshe's room, and I was leaning against this little walkway, and Lama Yeshe appeared from his door with a towel draped across his arm and a toothbrush. And he looked over at me just on his way to the bathroom there. He looked over at me and he said, yes, dear. Yes, humility and pride in conflict. This is difficult, dear. And I sort of fell back on the wall and said, this guy has my number. He has it. Pride and humility in conflict. This is difficult, dear. Very difficult. And yet he agreed to help me. Lama Yeshe is all about heart and mind. And he knew that no matter how much we learned, if we were crushed individuals, if we had low self-esteem, if we had no idea of what we were capable of, then we were going to live a miserable life, believing what others said about us, not trusting our own inherent goodness, our own Buddha nature. He was so kind to me, so sweet. So he kept me as a student. He allowed me to keep coming. Once he sent me to Geshe Rabten. He said to me, I want you to study with my teacher. You know Hindi, you can travel in India, go study with my teacher. He's a wisdom being. Because he knew that was how I had answered my friends. When my friends said after that first meeting, oh, he's so compassionate. He's so compassionate. What did I say? I said, oh, lots of Tibetans are compassionate. Can you believe it? Lots of Tibetans are compassionate, I said. I'm looking for the wisdom being. I said. So shortly after that, Lama Yeshe called and said, I want you, not the other two. I want you to go study with my teacher in India, Geshe Rabten. He's the wisdom being. It's like, does Lama Yeshe have this extraordinary hearing? Did he know that I was judging like that? Oh, tika. So I went to India. I studied for 6 weeks with Geshe Rabten. Geshe Rabten was so kind to me, so kind. Oh, because he was doing his retreat, and he saw me every day for 6 weeks. But when I'd gotten there, I had been late. I'd stopped off and seen a friend in Benares, and when I arrived in Dharamsala and went up to McLeod-Ganj, and finally Gonsa Rinpoche led me to Geshe Rabten's retreat hut. Geshe Rabten greeted me by chewing me out for being late. And I'm thinking, how does he know I'm late? There was no Wi-Fi. There was none of these phones then. I wasn't carrying a letter that said I'm going to be late. How did he know that? Oh, but after 6 weeks of studying with him, when I went back, I saw my two friends were inside having their daily lessons. We had daily lessons for a year with Lama Yeshe. Oh. I saw their shoes there, and I went up, and Lama Yeshe looked up at me when I opened the door, and he said, yeah, exactly as Geshe Rabten had said to me. Oh. So I continued to do prostrations. I just fell over and sobbed and said, through sobs, Lama, will you hold me dear? Will you take me as a student, please? Oh, so I had this judging mind, and Lama Yeshe gave me this wonderful, wonderful teaching. Tika. So that's how I met Lama Yeshe. Now, I just want to tell you a few stories. Oh. After a few weeks of being at Kokpan, I was living down at Bodhana at the Gelugpa nunnery. Sorry, there wasn't a nunnery then. At the Gelugpa monastery, Samdele, with 60 other monks, 60. And I was studying Tibetan. I would get up in the morning and run out and try to brush my teeth at 4:30 before the other monks came to the one spout where we all brushed our teeth and washed mouths. And then I would go and stand in line with the little lamalas and practice Tibetan. Almost like davening, right? But once I was on my way into the houses at Kapan, and I heard this screaming, this shouting. A Western student, here's my first real story. A Western student was shouting at Lama Yeshe, "You are wrong, Lama, you are wrong. You are wrong. That is not Buddhism." I'm going, whoa, who is that? And it turned out that the quarrel was about Lama Yeshe had given this example. And the example was, you see a woman running through your space, your room or whatever, your yard, and she's clearly terrified. And she says, "Please don't tell him where I am." Oh. And then you see, so she runs away and hides. And then a second person comes with a knife. A man is after this woman with a knife. And he looks at you and he says, "Which way? Where is she?" this was the image posed. Oh, so the Western student was saying, if you didn't answer the man truthfully, you were breaking an ethical vow. You were breaking a vow. You were lying. And Lama Yeshe was trying to say to this young man, tall guy, about 6'4", very skinny, been in India for a while. Lama Yeshe was trying to say, no, dear, no. You use your mind and judge the situation, you know. This man is clearly going to cause this woman harm. So in this case, you lie. You don't say where the woman is or where she went. And that man, that Westerner was so irate, he left in a huff. This is not a good teacher. But again, I want to say that Lama Yeshe was about developing heart and mind. And I feel sorry for that student who left in a huff, because he clearly didn't understand. Oh, bodhicitta, compassion, and wisdom. So the student who yelled at Lama Yeshe, I marveled over the years that Lama Yeshe could take any opportunity and turn it towards benefit for everybody involved. So here's one story about that. Oh, I had a friend who came to Nepal on a scholarship, a fellowship, and it was a he, and he brought his wife. They were a young couple. And one day this fellow said to me, Jan, I've really always wanted to meet Lama Yeshe. Could you arrange an introduction? It was a simple request. I said, sure, you know, bring your wife. And so we went up to Kopan, and Lama Yeshe was planning to have a tea and a lunch with them. He's very generous. You know, when I asked him, he said, will you meet this person? And Lama Yeshe, of course. So we came, I introduced them, and I started to show the man a little bit around Kopan before lunch. And when lunchtime came, we couldn't find Lama Yeshe. And it was the case that Lama Yeshe had met this person's wife, had discovered that she was the head horticulturalist of the state of New Jersey, and they had gone far out back to talk about Lama Yeshe's orchids. And she was blissed out because she had been there just as the spouse, the wife. Nobody took interest in her. But once Lama Yeshe met them, boom, he found a way to find out what her interests were. And then they became fast friends because they talked about flowers and orchids and Lama Yeshe's garden and what her suggestions would be for it. Lama Yeshe had a way of turning any occasion to benefit. Michaela, can you hear me okay? Lovely. I saw this turning every occasion to benefit often. And you wouldn't know which way it was going to go, except everybody was benefited. All who have a teacher in the Buddhist traditions know, you've seen this scenario play out. There could be 200 people in the audience, and yet after a talk, everybody in that audience feels like the Lama was talking just to them. They got just what they needed. And I saw that over and over again. And it meant to me that Lama Yeshe wasn't closed-fisted about anything. He wasn't keeping anything to himself. And he was demonstrating selflessness. He didn't, he wasn't holding on to self. He wasn't frightened about what people might think of him. He was just giving, because why not? Nothing held him back from giving. So one other little story about turning every occasion to benefit. I met a geisha when I was in Virginia once, in Charlottesville. Oh, met this geisha, and I would go see him, and he was a classmate of Lama Yeshe's. He was a classmate of Lama Yeshe's. So at Sarah J, So this man, years and years after, said to me, Jan, Lama Yeshe's singing voice was so beautiful that we monks love to do certain pujas with him. When Lama Yeshe was there, we get to this point in the ritual where it was time to sing to the Dakinis, where it was time to bring in the good spirits. We would all go silent at a certain point and listen. Listen as Lama Yeshe sang it with such devotion and with such heart. He said to me, that geisha, oh, he had such a beautiful voice. Kawa, such a beautiful voice. I thought, oh, so tender, so sweet, so lovely. So I was happy to get that extra little bit. Lama Zopa and I, Lama Zopa Rinpoche and I used to hang out a lot together. Lama Yeshe would say to me, go, keep him company. How does anyone keep Lama Zopa company? So, and Lama Yeshe, I'd start Lama Yeshe, go keep him company. So I'd go and I'd sneak I'd sit at the corner of the room, Lama Zopa sitting there meditating, as he was always doing, meditating. And every now and then, Lama Zopa would open his eyes and look at me in the corner of the room and say, have you met Tushik Rinpoche? And I was about to say, well, no, I haven't, but I'd like. He was Lama Zopa, he was back meditating. Then a few minutes would go by and then he would say, have you met someone, No, and go back. I thought, and I've said to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, so then after he'd go back in the meditation, and then finally, and I guess this was my cue to leave, finally he would look at me and he'd say, he is a perfect Lama, perfect. Everybody he mentioned, have I met, he is perfect. And so sometimes now, lately, I'll say to Rinpoche, I said, Rinpoche, what kind of way was that to gossip? Everybody was perfect. Oh, and he just howls in laughter. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche and I would say to each other, how is it that Lama Yeshe has read all these things? How does he know all this stuff? This would be the conversation between myself and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Because anybody who knows Rinpoche knows, you'd think, when does he sleep? He's always meditating, right? He's always working the benefit of beings. He's always painting or, Lama Zopa Rinpoche and I would say, how does Lama Yeshe have time to read all these things? How does he know all these things? We marveled. And Lama Yeshe said to me, daughter, I was so proud he called me daughter. He said, daughter, may have just meant unmarried woman, okay. He'd say, daughter, learn everything, dear. You must learn everything. I'm going, oh, it's hard enough. I got Sanskrit, Tibetan, Pali, it's hard. Learn everything, dear. I said, but why, Lama, everything? He said, because one day you might be able to help one being by knowing that Pali or that Hindi. You might be able to help one being, and to help one being with your knowledge, that's worthwhile. That makes life worthwhile. So do it, dear. Now he balanced that charge to learn everything with his light manner of being. When I go to Lama Yeshe and I say, this is just too difficult, his response was always, oh, that's so simple, dear. That's so simple, dear. He made everything seem easy. He made everything seem easy. Oh, true demonstration of bodhisattva. Like Shantideva says, the bodhisattva glides into the lake of suffering beings like a swan and dallies there. One saw that with Lama Yeshe. Oh, that's so simple, dear. That's so easy, dear. I think I might have time for one or two more stories. Oh, in 1983, a year before he passed away, Lama Yeshe asked me to do something that made me feel so buoyed, and it was such an honor. So one day I'm in Middletown, I pick up the phone and it's Sister Max. And Sister Max says, hey, Jan. And I said, are you in the States? She said, no, I'm in Delhi. And she says, Lama Yeshe wants you, when you guys meet up at Vajrapani, he wants you to teach him Western philosophy. And I almost dropped the phone. I said, Max, come on. I mean, is this real? I mean, Lama Yeshe wants me to teach him? And she said, oh, yeah. And I said, why? Our egos like, why? Why must we? She said, look, he thinks you're a good teacher, and he wants this as further background on where his Western students are coming from. So we want you to make up a booklet with 4 or 5 pages each from the great Western philosophical tradition. And he will study that. You will teach it to him each morning for the month that the course is going on. Tika. Actually, I think it was a month after the course. But anyway, so I did that. I made up this little booklet with 4 or 5 page excerpts of these philosophers, these great philosophers' main theories. And we met every day, 6 days a week, from 9 in the morning till 12 noon, after which Lama Yeshe would go out to his garden, this was in California, cut some chives and make lunch for me and Oa and him. So that was a marvelous experience, right? Oh, I come in the morning and Lama Yeshe would say, this man is wrong, dear. He is wrong. Like, who's wrong today? Plato. Lama Yeshe would say, nobody see beauty. You see beautiful thing, dear. You see beautiful flower, you see beautiful person. You don't see beauty. So he was attacking Plato's use of forms. Oh, but I tell the story because two things. I'm going to go two places with this. I hope you have time to let me finish. You can stop me if you want. Oh. So one day out at the house, after the teachings, I had to go into town. So I was made the caretaker. I was to look after Lama Yeshe. Okay, that was already, I was nervous. Okay. We know the heart condition and everything. Okay. So Lama Yeshe lay down, and all went away, and Lama Yeshe lay down on the couch in the living room. And he'd been laying down for maybe 10 minutes or so. Then there was this knock at the door. So I gestured, Lama Yeshe, please, Lama, please just stay there. I'll send whoever this is away. And Lama Yeshe sat up and he said, no, dear, let them in, let them in. So, okay, so you do what the Guru said. So I let the people in. I would have probably been better at this, but I let the folk in. It was a young couple, had never seen them. They hadn't been at Vajrapani. They didn't know anything about Buddhism. They knew that a Tibetan teacher lived at this house. So they came to the door. Lama Yeshe sat up spryly. Dear, how can I help you? How can I help you? What? It's good to meet you. Come in, and told me to make tea or something. And he talked to the young couple. And they were there for like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, before they left. And I'm going, it's going to get me. And Lama Yeshe shouldn't be doing this. And the young couple left. And I went to Lama Yeshe and I said, Lama, do I have your permission to stop the next person? Because you really are so tired. You really need this rest. And Lama Yeshe said to me, no, dear, that is my job. That is my job to see them and to help them. It is my job, dear. True Bodhisattva. That is my job. That is his job. So, in conclusion of a list of stories, my own experience with Lama Yeshe is this. I knew him and studied with him for 15 years. And he had one teaching for me. And it was about building my confidence. Because when I had come to him, I had been dragging, low self-worth, just dragging, totally insecure. So Lama Yeshe was, I think, just all about, with me, building my confidence, right? So there were a number of ways he did it. But one stands out. I mean, he'd have me, once he had me write a lecture for him. He said, I'm going to give this lecture, you write it. I want all the Sanskrit terminology, and you have 2 hours. I'll be back. So he made me do things like that, which I never thought I could. But of course, when he came back, I had something ready. But the main way he imparted this teaching of confidence was, we were once having a discussion, group of people, and Lama Yeshe was teaching something, and afterwards, or during the course of that, he with the others there. He looked at me and he said, I say one thing, you see five. And so insecure, I said, Lama, is that bad? Is that a bad thing? And he said, no, silly. It's a good thing. It means your mind is quick. So thereafter, I mean, over years, we'd be in different circumstances with different groups of people, and we'd be discussing something, and Lama Yeshe would do this. He would just hold up 5 fingers. He'd be in front, you know, I'd see this, his hands behind his back, and one of the hands would do this. And that meant right on. You got it. And he did that. And nobody else noticed. I mean, what is that about? For holding up 5 fingers. But it was such a tender, sweet, teaching for me.
Jan, thank you so very much for your really, really rich presentation. It feels like you gave us yourself tonight, and you gave us Lama Yeshe. Just such inspiration and hope, and it just, yeah, for becoming better human beings and turning all situations into good and making everything seem easy. Just so many wonderful stories. We have got quite a few questions, and I'll start with a practical one. Deki Lee was asking that booklet that you wrote for Lama on the various Western philosophies, is that still available? Might you
no.
No? Okay.
For asking. It was a little booklet. You know, it was called From the Pre-Socratics to Wittgenstein.
Okay.
When I studied philosophy, analytic philosophy was the thing. And so I studied with one of Wittgenstein's first American students. He taught at Cornell, and that's where I ended up doing philosophy. Okay, so here's another sweet story about Lama Yeshe. This was 1983. One day, Lama Yeshe asked me to take him down to get to this cool house that was on the beach. I drove in there nervous, you know, I have Lama on board. You know, I turn down the street, we go into this. He had a student had given him the keys and said, Lama, if you need to come back to this house. It was so resplendent. It was such a, you know, rich house. I'd never seen anything like it. We drove down this long dirt road. The house was on the edge of the ocean there. And 3 sides of the living room were all glass. So it's kind of fancy. Lama Yeshe said, I'm going to my room, dear. Call me when there's lunch ready. And I panicked. Oh, I have to make lunch for Lama. I don't know anything about this kitchen. I don't know how to cook. I don't know. So he said, get me when lunch is ready. Well, then he went outside of the house and up these stairs to a room that was designated his room. And he knew about it. Okay, so I called, no answer. I tipped up, I knocked on the door, no answer. Then I started to get worried, you know. Is anything wrong? Is he well? You know. Finally, I got brave enough to push in the door. Lama Yeshe was awake. He was in his little bathroom. And on the bed was this booklet, highlighted in yellow. He had a yellow marker. He was studying for the next day's class. That touched me so profoundly, you know. He was studying. Yeah. I don't know who else. Well, yeah, there could be other stories like that, but he was studying for the next day. And I witnessed that. He didn't do it for my sake. there it was. Yeah. So I have a copy of that booklet somewhere, but it wasn't anything published.
It's just Jackie Lee was suggesting it might be very useful for bridging and for the universal education facilitators. So we'll put that request in, and if it materializes, that's wonderful. Okay, some more questions. Paul had a question which relates to Black Lives Matters, and in particular for him as a white male, you know, do you have any suggestions on how he can approach the whole you know, white supremacy, white guilt, white fragility, etc. He said, what one piece of advice would you give to a middle class male wanting to engage meaningfully with the Black Lives Matters movement?
Wanting to engage meaningfully. Yeah. That's already an important step. Yeah. I suggest in places where I'm asked to talk about this, that willingness to get engaged, that is the commitment to do it. You know, you're taking bodhisattva vows, you aspire to it and then you take them and then you practice it. So that it's really important to first be committed to learning. Wisdom is gained in 3 ways: by study, by reflection, by meditating. So I'm so glad that you're committed to it. So the first thing is to study, to learn about it. And there are all sorts of ways. Get involved with a group, go to ethnic museums, do whatever you have to read. There's so much good material out there. And thank you, I'm glad to know it.
Yeah, I mean, my question would, what do you think Lama Yeshe might say about Black Lives Matters?
Oh, I think he'd be all for it.
He'd take the knee.
Can you see this?
Yeah. A
you
Buddha.
See the sign that the Buddha's holding?
Can you see it, Paul? No.
Can you see it? The Buddha is holding a sign that says Black Lives Matter.
Oh, cool.
Come on.
Thank you.
This was a short piece I wrote in Lion's Roar. They got the graphic somewhere, but it's absolutely spot on. Of course the Buddha would have such a sign.
Yeah.
Let's all get involved now. The thing is, I marched with King when I was 15 in Birmingham, Civil Rights March. And now to see it again in my lifetime, it's a little sad, but I'm so elated that there's so many young people who want to work on racial and social justice in this country and in this world at this time. It's very heartening. I just hope we don't have to do it too many times. Let's keep moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I have the privilege of being part of an FDCW book circle where we're studying Layla Said's book, Me and White Supremacy, and there's a few of us on this call in that circle, and it's painful work for us, and it's a privilege to be doing it. We have another question from Denise. Did Lama talk about UE as just for children?
Did Lama talk about
universal education as just for children?
No. As just for children? We all need it, don't we?
Yeah.
I think we all need it.
Yeah. Do you want, because sometimes people associate universal education as being just for children. So I don't know if you want to speak.
Oh, no, I think we all need that education. Yeah. Perhaps I'll send you this, Wendy.
Thank you. Yeah.
At Agnes Scott, last couple of years, I did a course called Race and Racism.
Okay.
Through a Buddhist lens.
Please do, please, yeah.
I'm thinking about Paul. Was it Paul who asked that question?
It was Paul, yeah.
That I'll send you that, which gives some readings, and some movies, DVDs, some rap music. Oh.
Yeah.
All right, Paul.
Thank you for, if you could send that to Michaela. And Kamlo asked you to talk about the time that you saw Lama and with Angela Davis.
Aha. Okay. Lama Yeshe said to me, oh, the UCSC stories. Oh, I have to go through it in my mind and try to edit out. There was so much that happened at UCSC. First, Lama Yeshe said to me one day that he would like to try. He would like to try the university experience. You know, Lama would like to try a university experience. This was in '74. We visited Geshe Zopa at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Not long after, Lama Yeshe said he thought that was a life he'd like to try. Now, little did I know that next year I was going to get invited to Wesleyan as a visiting professor. And we had to find a replacement for me. So I said, ooh, how about Lama Yeshe? Now, Lama Yeshe did not have a green card. He didn't have any of the requirements, but he met the chancellor of the university, whom I knew well. That chancellor gave a reception for this visitor of mine, Lama Yeshe. And as always happened, we had this fun party, lots and lots of people at the chancellor's house. And the chancellor and Lama Yeshe couldn't be found. Why? Because they're in some back room talking about their respective heart conditions. The chancellor, Ed Dirks, of UCSC, made Lama Yeshe a substitute for me. He pulled all sorts of strings. It couldn't happen. But Lama Yeshe then taught at UCSC. And okay, so what's the question here? What am I trying to get back to? He said that was one of the happiest experiences of his life. Now, but the question, I lost the question. So sorry. What was the question, Wendy?
That's a good question.
Does anybody remember the question?
I'm so busy listening to you. There was we have other questions, and then that one. But we have a question about, was Lama Yeshe vegetarian?
Oh no, he was not. Lots of Tibetans aren't. Lama Yeshe would make chives and put them in mutton or some kind of meat soup, which he would treat guests to. Always delicious.
Oh, great. Professor Jan, Denise has reminded me that you were telling us about the story of Angela Davis Lama.
Oh, right.
Sorry. Thanks, Denise.
Thank you so much. So, so before Lama Yeshe was teaching at UCSC, I guess the year before, '74, he was visiting California. He was giving talks and retreats, Yucca Valley Retreat, and Angela Davis was giving a talk in the amphitheater, which is an outside amphitheater in the forest at UCSC. It had these beautiful venues. And so I invited Lama Yeshe, and he really wanted to hear her. And Angela Davis was speaking, and a few times during her talk, he said to me, all beings should be strong and confident like this lady, like this lady. He was visibly excited to hear her speak, and he loved it. And I got to tell her in person last year at a conference of 370 Black Buddhists. There was a conversation between myself and Angela Davis on freedom and liberation. Wonderful. And I got to tell her, she really enjoyed that story.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Are you up for some more questions?
Sure.
Okay, so we have one in particular about how Lama coped with his heart condition and yet still stayed so positive and joyful, and any advice you think that he would give to those with chronic illnesses.
My feeling is that Lama Yeshe was always joyful as I tried to, as I alluded to, when he was really tired out. I had seen him 1 second before, just completely exhausted. And then the doorbell rang, and I saw him completely transform into this vibrant looking, happy, very smiling face. And he greeted those beings. So I think it must be the power of compassion and his own meditation practice that helped him to do that. And also, you know, basic Buddhism teaches or is about, we might experience pain, but we don't have to then add to that another layer. We don't have to make our pain suffering, if that's clear. The suffering is another story we tell on top of whatever pain we're experiencing. So I think Lama was really clear about that being the case, and he never added, you know, to the situation. And I think, secondly, praying for others is helpful to our situation. So if we know something firsthand, there is suffering, experience that, understand that, then knowing that suffering, we might wish that others not experience it. So that always is a way of turning so much attention away from the pain we're feeling, not putting the extra story of suffering on it, and wishing that others be spared this suffering, I think are good practices. Just an opinion.
Thank you. There's another question. Do you think there's a connection between Lama Yeshe and rainbows?
I never thought about that. Maybe the one asking the question has some idea on this.
That's a good point. Yes. Yeah.
You want to share? Whoever asked that?
Yep. Michaela, you sent that one to me. Who?
Just 1 second. I believe it was Julianne, if you could unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I suppose when holy beings are around, there very often are rainbows, but I don't know if it's something specific in her question. From what you say, Lama Yeshe indicated that it's the student rather than the subject matter that is actually pretty important aspect of teaching. And I wonder if you could suggest, you know, what conditions a person can create to facilitate that growth, you know, where it actually helping the student to learn rather than just trying to pass on information.
I don't know if one can be taught to be a good teacher. I think good people are good teachers. You know, there's something that's not even verbal necessarily from a good teacher. I think a good teacher can listen, can be a presence. Sometimes that's the most important thing that teachers can give as support, right? And also, I mean, in different contexts are different, you know. Sometimes I begin a class or somewhere during the first week, I try to dispel insecurities by saying a little thing like, we're all here together. That means we all belong. We all belong here. Now let's get to work, right? So that students who come in a little hesitant, you know, maybe they didn't earn their place. I try to help us all dispel that right away. Sometimes beings need support. Lama Yeshe asked me to translate the lives of the Ganden Siddhas. And when he first suggested it, I thought, are there any? And then he looked at me in just pure disgust. Like, of course, whenever anybody becomes enlightened, we can call them Siddhas, and it's happened in the Gaelic tradition. So then I went and I said, I'm so sorry. I got it. The next second I got it. And what I found that scholars don't talk about, I don't think I've ever written anything about it, though I've given talks about it. If we think of Namtar, if we think of the lives of the saints, the Buddhist saints, if you will, just before enlightenment was ushered in for them, I don't think people look at this closely enough. There was some guru love. Siddhas are really desperate folk. They're intent. They're intense people. They're gonna attain enlightenment one lifetime, come hell or high water, right? So from Milarepa to the Ganden Siddhas, there's always some point where there's just this little bit of love dropped into them, and they attain complete insight. If you think of Milarepa, who was so in, right, the boulders on the back, it towers, the abuse, we would call it, right, that he suffered over and over again. Then he said, I'm going to the mountains. I'm not going to have a family like you, Marpa. I'm going to the mountains. And Marpa gave him a note. He said, open this when you absolutely feel that you're at death's door, not before. So Milarepa went off in the mountains, and he practiced Dumo heat, and he survived all those winters. And the sister came and said, oh, you're so disgusting. You're gray and you're fuzzy. And he said the outside doesn't mirror the inside. But there got to be a point in Milarepa's meditations where he thought the next breath would bring his death. So he remembered that note from Marpa. And he opened the note, and the note from Marpa said, now take good food. It's that touch of love that does it. And it always works. I'm going to, yes.
Professor Jan, you always had such a strong connection with Lama Yeshe. I just wonder, and there's a question, do you have a similar link with perhaps Lama Urso?
Well, no, I don't feel it. That may be my, well, I don't know what it is. I met Oso when he was 10 months old. And what I witnessed was just a strong connection between him and Lama Zopa. There were a few of us gathered up at the Milarepa Center in Barnett, Vermont. And Lama Zopa was lecturing, was supposed to stop at 9 p.m., and so at 2 in the morning, we're all still there. And we hear from down below, from the highway down below, there's a long, those who know this center, long gravelly road that's very steep. We heard this baby crying. I mean, baby was just wailing, just so miserable. And that wail got closer and closer and closer. And then finally, Venerable Roger rounded the door with Osel in his arms, just wailing, and he just set him in Lama Zopa's lap. And the baby went, wah! So it was just like, I saw that. I said, well, there's something to that. But personally, I think Osel is doing his thing, and it may be really helpful to lots of beings. But I don't get the same feeling. I still feel as though Lama Yeshe is my teacher.
Yeah, thank you. And talking about going on till 2 in the morning, of course, we really could, but we have gone over time. So I'm just wondering if you have a final piece of advice for us, please. Just a final piece of universal education advice.
Well, I just have a wish for us all that our own innate goodness, our own love and insight grows where it hadn't, Shantideva, may it appear, and where it appears, may it continue, and where to be maintained, and where it's maintained, may it grow ever and ever more. It's so lovely to have joined you today. I'm sorry I could only tell a few stories. I'm sure you could add many, many more. And we're fortunate if we met Lama Yeshe in this life. And we're fortunate if we meet Lama Zopa Rinpoche in this life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your wisdom, your clarity, your dignity, your embodiment, your vision. It's just been an honor to be with you. Thanks also to our really efficient, caring FDCW team, and a big shout out and thanks to all of you who have given up your time to be here tonight in the Big Love Festival.